Hello everybody! In this video tutorial I want to discuss with you how we can generate what is called a categorical scatterplot in Excel. And I discovered that this is surprisingly challenging. Apparently the good people from Microsoft have not thought about something like that. So what am I talking about? Right, so let's say we do an experiment and we collect some data. It's a very small data set. So for example, we want to see if how seedlings are growing. So we measure the growth of seedlings. We measure that in centimeters. So for example, we let them grow for a day or two or something like that, and then measure how much have they grown. And we've got three kind of parameters for that. So we have the control, that would be the untreated seedlings. We have treatment number 1, that might be with some nutrients, and treatment number 2 with another set of nutrients. And we want to plot these data so that we can immediately see what's going on. And ideally, we also would like to show our average growth and also maybe the standard deviation. So what do we want our plot to look like? So we would probably want to have something like that. Here on the x-axis, that's our independent variable, we want the categories. So we want the control, we want treatment number 1, and we want treatment number 2. And on the y-axis, that's the dependent variable, that would be the growth, and here we've got that in centimeters. Let's do it like that. And because we've got only a very small set of data, we want to show each data point. So we would like to have something like this, where we have 3 data points for the control, like we've got here 3 data points, and for the treatment 1 we might have something like that. I'm not looking at the data at the moment. We also might want to have, say, the mean of the data indicated. So for example, if here is the mean of the data, we want to indicate it like that. And we might want to have some standard deviation, some error bars with standard deviation. So that is what we would like to have our plot at the end, what it should look like. So I'll remove that to get some space here. So, but we keep that in mind, that this is what we actually want to have. So how are we going to deal with it? Now the first thing that we do is we calculate the average. So I need to go in here and select. Okay, so here we calculate the average for our treatments. So that would be the mean, and in Excel we can easily calculate that. That would be equals average, and I start typing, so it comes up with a suggestion. I left mouse double click on it, and I just simply highlight the numbers that I want this to continue in the bracket to calculate the mean. So that would be from B3 to B5. Yeah, that looks good. Close the bracket, and here this is the mean, and for these data. Now what I can do is I can calculate the mean for treatment 1 and treatment 2, and because I'm lazy, I just go down here, and you see this black cross here in the bottom corner. Left mouse button clicked, and I just simply drag it over, and it will do the calculation of the average for the other treatments. And what we see is that actually the mean for the growth in the control seems to be the largest, whereas the treatment 1 has the lowest growth and treatment 2, well, is sort of in between. So it looks like that the seedlings do not like treatment 1 or treatment 2. So this is now our data set that we can use. And now we need to figure out how we can actually plot this. And as I said, this is surprisingly challenging because Excel doesn't really have a good option for dealing with something like that. So what can we do? We need to prepare our data a little bit, and it will look a little bit odd. So what I do in the first place is I highlight the data for treatment 1 and pull them down, move them so that it looks like something like that. So you notice the treatment 1 here for the controls, that is now empty, and we've got treatment 1 here. And we do exactly the same thing for treatment 2 and do it like that. Now, important, just to keep track of our last data point, these were the mean. So here we had the mean for control, here we have the mean for treatment 1, and here we have the mean for treatment 2. We can also calculate standard deviations, and I do that down here. So the standard deviation, and I just simply abbreviate it like that. So we can calculate the sample standard deviation. That's again, that's very easy. We just start typing and we are looking for the sample standard deviation, which is abbreviated with this standard def s. So we highlight that because this then will give our error bar at the end. So that's our standard deviation for the control. Here we do it for the standard deviation for our treatment 1, and we do the standard deviation for treatment 2. And now we are pretty much set up with whatever we need. And we see the standard deviation for control and treatment 1 are pretty similar, whereas the treatment 2, the standard deviation is quite large. Okay, now let's plot. So what are we going to do? We highlight control, we highlight our data like this with the left mouse button clicked, and then we move to a line plot. Now this is probably the only situation where a line plot is really useful. So let's click on that and we go to a line plot where we have the data like this. So we want to have it in this way. So this is now our plot. Let's not worry about the chart title and things like that, because to be perfectly honest, it doesn't really look good. We are not interested in these weird things. So what we need to do now is we need to switch row and column. So that's up here, and let's switch row and column. And here we get our data points, control, treatment, and treatment 2. We don't really need the legend here, so we can remove that. And now we've got our data points here, and they are nicely stacked up. And if we look carefully, we see that we've got 4 data points. So these are the 3 data points plus the average that we have. And of course, we want to highlight the average a little bit more. So what we can do is we can try to figure out which one is the mean. So here it tells us even if we hover over it. So this is series point control 4 with a value of 0.64, and that actually was our mean. So what we can do is we click on it and it shows us that we have the mean. And what we do is if we double click on it, we will open another window here, and now we can format this data point. So what do we do with it? So we go to this bucket here to format this data point. We go to marker, that's this one here, and we look at the marker options. Now I usually like to have a slightly different shape for the mean. So we go to built in, and I would like to have, let's say, this one here, and I would like it to be black. I don't want a fill, but I want a solid line. So this gives us our first average. How does it look like? Okay, that's the average. The other 3 are the data points. And now we can actually also include error bars into that. How do we do that? Or actually, let's do the averages for the other data points as well. So here our treatment 1 has a mean of 0.22. Let's see. I think that's this one here. Click on it. Yes, that's the right one. Now I want to do the same thing here. I want to change the marker option, built in. I want this one here. I want no fill, but a solid line. Okay, I've got this. And for treatment number 2, I go for this one here. Yep, we've got the right one. Marker options, again, the built-in option. I want the star again. That's this one. I don't want a fill, but I want a solid line. So now I have labeled all my averages, and it might be a good idea to note that then in the legend. And now how can we add error bars? That's also pretty straightforward. So what we can do is we can double click on the average, this one here, and let's remove that, and we get these little sidebars here. So click on the plus and we go to error bars. We check this box and go on the arrow, and here under more options we choose custom, and we get a large error bar here, but that indicates that we've got something. And here we want to specify the value. That's the value that we've just calculated with the standard deviation. So here we just put in this value, and here we also put in for the lower one this value. Okay, so we've got our standard deviation. Let's quickly do that for the other ones as well. So we go to the error bars here for this one. More option, we customize it. specify the value, and here we've got the standard deviation here, and the standard deviation also for the lower one. Okay. Oops, we apparently made a mistake. Yes, here's the mistake. Okay, that's the error bar here. And last but not least, let's do the same thing for treatment 2. And error bars, custom options. Again, we want to specify this one and also this one here. And we need to be careful not to make the same mistake again that we've done before. And this should now look pretty decent. So that's what we needed to do. Of course, we want to give it a chart title, that is growth of seedlings. Growth of seedlings. And we probably need to also give it a title here on the y-axis. So again, we click on the axis, we say axis title, and in this case, we want to give that as growth, and we have this in centimeters. Okay, so we don't need this axis title down here. So this is how we can actually prepare a relatively decent categorical scatter plot when we have these data here, where we use the different categories. And of course you can have more than just these 3 categories. You can have as many categories as you like, but then it gets a little bit wild. You can also have larger data sets, but then again it gets a little bit wild. So I think you should not have more than 5, 6, 7 data here, but at least we can see how our data actually look like. So I hope this makes sense, and thank you very much for watching.